Get comfortable. Hi, I'm Scott R. Jones, and this is Legends of Tabletop.
Yes, thank you for joining us today, Scott. And you're with Martian Migraine Press and weird fiction author extraordinaire. Tell me more of what you've been up to.
Okay, extraordinaire. Well, I don't know about that so far. Working towards it, I guess. Yeah, Martian Migraine Press. Well, what do you want to know? It's a.
How long have you been around?
It really started off in fits and starts about, let's call it 5 years ago. And it's mostly it's a one-man operation, although I do have plenty of plenty of helpers and folks who get what we're trying to do with Martian Migraine, and have come on board to assist at times. But yeah, mostly it's just me. I edit anthologies. I've edited. We're coming up on our fifth anthology to be released in late July, just in time for Necronomicon, and that's called A Breath from the Sky: Unusual Stories of Possession. And what we try to do, our sort of brief for creating these books. And they're always weird fiction books. We never get far away from our roots, which is, of course, a respect for Howard Phillips Lovecraft and his work, and the sort of open source code of the Cthulhu mythos and all the ways we get to play inside that horrible world.
Yes.
So our anthology, we always take, or most often we have taken a seed story from HPL. So for the anthology from 2 years back, Resonator, yes, Resonator, New Lovecraftian Tales from Beyond. And if you're at all familiar with Stuart Gordon's work and Lovecraft's story From Beyond, then every story in that book was based on was basically riffing the Resonator technology. And I've always loved that one. It's practically a one-act play. It's just two men sitting at a table in a small room, and around this machine. You could totally see it as like a Waiting for Godot kind of thing. And I do, but then it was like, what can we do with that? What can we do? What else is that machine good for? It opens up the pineal gland so that you can perceive things that are there, but you don't have access to. Then it has the weird ability to, also open you up to the things that you're perceiving. So it's kind of like a magic circle that's been busted wide open with science.
Yes.
and so, yes. So for that one, I wanted to see other uses of the technology. I wanted to see military applications. I wanted to see, what would a criminal do with it? What would con men do with it? What sort of other psychedelic effects would it have? What are the various mental illnesses that might kick in because of it? And the authors that submitted to it just blew me away 9 times out of 10. I read so much good fiction prepping that book, and yeah, it's just so that was the book that really kind of set me on that path. Imagining, or at least not so much reimagining, I know that's a loaded word, but basically that's the thing about Lovecraft, is that so much of his material is, and the reason why it resonates so well with people, sorry, I didn't mean to make that pun, but the reason it resonates, I live on the west coast of Canada, and in a very sort of hippie fried place, so we're always talking about how things are resonating with us. But the reason it resonates so
spread vibration, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It just you know, there's so much that he leaves unsaid, which allows the reader to really enter that world and begin thinking about his world and his concepts and what they might mean and where they might go. And that's what happened with Resonator. And then we decided to just, you know, basically keep going on that track. So the anthology after that was Cthulhu Sattva.
Yes.
Tales
Tell
of the
us
Black
more about
Gnosis. Well, I wrote in 2013, I wrote a book called When the Stars Are Right, towards an authentic Relayan spirituality. And because that's another of my, you know, obsessions is, you know, basically new age spiritual thought and, you know, various, you know, how religion and faith work, you know, what they do for humans, what they don't do very well for humans. And, you know, how much of our existence is kind of like wrapped up in, if not in either, you know, fighting against religious and theist thought, or, you know, incorporating it into, you know, into our ways of life. You know, I think we're, for all that we're moving away from it, we're still a fairly, you know, we are a magically thinking species. You know, we are constantly seeking meaning in as many, you know, in as many venues as possible. And one of our old standbys has always been, you know, what do the gods think about this? So,
Yes.
you know, and so I started off writing When the Stars Are Right as a joke. Funny if we mapped Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth and Dagon, if we mapped them onto sort of archetypal Gnostic spiritual forms, right? And what can we learn from them, you know, when we take this stance? And as I started writing it, you know, I started writing it as a gag, but then as I got further into it, I'm like, hold on, this is, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I'm like, this is starting to work. You know, this is working for me personally. I wonder if it'll start working for others. And so I wrote that book, and it got some you know, it got a lot of love for the year that it in the year that it launched. And, you know, I still get folks coming to me and talking about it, and, you know, wanting to learn more about it. And but when it came time to do the next anthology for Martian Migraine, I was basically casting about for ideas like you do, and I thought, well, you know, this is the hot topic right now in the HQ. So you know, and I've always enjoyed the, you know, the later mythos stories that had that as a tack, that instead of looking at, you know, deranged cultists and, you know, basically middle-aged, highly educated white Anglo-Saxon men coming up against, you know, elements of the mythos and being properly freaked out about it, you know, because essentially Lovecraft wrote himself into many of his stories, right? So he's in there having sort of a classic, you know, fear and loathing reaction to these, you know, these things he's learning, these aspects of the world that he was not privy to before, and now he is. Oh, and it's just too much, you know. Surely, you know, madness is preferable to death or something. Go ahead.
Yes.
I can see you wanting to say something.
Well, may I interrupt you for a very brief moment?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And I just wanted to say that I love coffee. And
very good.
Now for a word from our sponsors. It'll be very brief. But in the meantime, let us know, where can we get hard copies of the books that Martian Migraine Press produces?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can order. I prefer to order from your local bookstore, because that gets it delivered to them, and, you know, they become more aware of it, and it goes on a shelf, which is always fun. But you can also order directly through Press website. There's a bookstore there, and also from Amazon.
Okay, so from MartianMigrainePress.com?
Yep.
Okay, all one word.
Absolutely.
Martian Migraine Press.
All one word. We're the only one out there, so you can throw it into the Google and it'll show up.
Awesome. Awesome. And then also the Conqueror Womb.
Ah, that was our first shot out of the gate.
Really?
Yeah, that was it was, you know, that's still an ebook. It was an ebook to start with. Yeah, what a thing. Conqueror Womb, Lusty Tales of Shub Niggurath. Again, you know, there again is Lovecraft's sort of, you know, I'm just, here's Lovecraft typing away, and he's like, I'm just going to toss in this name and this concept, and then I'm never going to touch it again. It's like, whoa, it's just, here we have, you know, in our, you know, vast pantheon of monster gods, suddenly there's a fertility deity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young, and all that that implies,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
The where is the horror erotica dealing with old Shubby there? She doesn't get enough love. So that was our initial, you know, foray into. Yeah, it had a rating system. We had some lovely stories in there. One by Molly Tanzer, which is just gorgeous, and Willem Pugmire wrote a story especially for it.
Those are both names that I am not surprised to hear them.
No, of course, right?
Yeah.
But also, you know, there were names from the you know, from the wider erotica community who were like, oh, this is, you know, this is different and interesting. And yeah, it's a very different and interesting book. It had a rating system because I figured if we have, you know, weird fiction and horror aficionados, you know, picking up this book, they're probably going to want to read the stories that are more horrific first, you know, sort of ease them into the smutty material. So we basically had a 1 through 3 goat head system, wherein, you know, if it was one goat head, you could be pretty sure it was going to be horrific with some mild erotic elements. And if it was 3, it was basically XXX, and you could for when it was time for that.
Oh, that's so hilarious. So after the Conqueror Womb, I'm guessing that's when you dove into Necronomicon? Or
Yeah.
would that have been later?
Yeah, after that, there was such, after Conqueror Womb, there was just enough interest that I was like, well, maybe we should make it a magazine. You know, maybe we should just do a magazine of weird erotica, because there doesn't seem to be anything out there. Have you read Bobby Derry's wonderful Sex in the Cthulhu Mythos book? Amazing.
No.
I'm gonna do a little push for Bobby Derry's book there.
Okay.
Which is put up by Hippocampus, so you know it's scholarly.
Yes.
And it really is. But you know, he basically did a whole list of where you could find the weird erotica through the 20th century, and things just kind of petered out in the 90s. They were gone. There was
I remember there being just a tiny wisp of just a small passage of kind of in T.D. Klein's the ceremonies. That was it.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, Ramsey Campbell had that wonderful collection out, Scared Stiff.
Oh.
That was, you know, and that was certainly a formative experience, you know, reading that, along with, you know, along with the Victorian periodical, The Pearl. And so I wanted to bring all these sort of erotic aspects into the weird. There was briefly a magazine called Cthulhu Sex, which is, you know, not a very imaginative title, and really had very little to do with either thing. Apparently, it was just, you know, they just wanted a wacky title, although they did occasionally jump into that. So yeah, Necronomicon was I hate the name, others love it. I personally love it. So we basically put it out, and it was over the course of a year and a bit. And I just want to say at this point that kudos to all these who can put out a magazine basis, because it was some of the hardest work I've done. Just in terms of production values, which I've always, you know, committed to. You know, my production values are always as high as I can possibly do. Not to, you know, we try not to skimp at all. If it looks bad, we're not going to use it. but also the submissions that we got for Necronomicon, it was open all the time. So
well,
I was
it would
reading.
almost have to be, because you'd
Well,
have to
yeah,
turn through so much content.
Oh, I churned. we stopped calling it a slush pile and just call it a slush. You know, it was this pool that would never empty, and it was always an education in humanity for me.
Oh gosh.
Because for every piece of, well, you've probably seen this. I think we were talking about before the show about this, where it's like jewel for everything that was like, wow, that is hot and weird.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's working. This is, you know, not only is it a good piece of fiction, it's good erotica. It's, you know, it's hitting all the spots. For every one of those, there were 36 into the world that I did not need.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and, I've read things that I just wish, you know, you know, I'll never be able to. You can't unread it.
Yeah.
You can't unread it. And I've read so much, and disturbing smut.
Mm-hmm.
So that took its toll. That took a mental and spiritual toll on me.
Oh no.
But I managed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many issues did you manage to release of Necronomicon?
Just the four. Okay. And they were all roughly the same size. We're actually considering smashing them all together and making sort of an omnibus. Mm-hmm. But again, that's
like
going
a
to be
best of.
Yeah, sort of a best of, maybe solicit a few extra pieces. So, you know, I had an older piece by Ramsey Campbell in there, mm-hmm. which he was very happy to provide, and that's, you know, started my association with Mr. Campbell, and yeah, it was just a fun little magazine, and you know, you can still get it for your Kindle.
Awesome, because unfortunately, I think that is, I started Necronomicon number 3, and yeah, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and it has remained on my Kindle.
Okay, good.
So
good. Yeah, it's like it's about filling a need, mm-hmm. right? It's about, you know, seeing that there was, you know, a space for this to happen, and, you know, if I could keep up the workload, I would have. Yeah. I just couldn't. So again, kudos to folks who put up magazines.
Yeah, Justine. I just want to issue kudos to her for Orgy and the Valley of the Lust Larvae. I love it.
That is a thing. That is a thing.
Oh man,
go ahead.
I'm just more into it for the shock value and the looks that I get after reading it aloud to my husband at random while he's playing games online via an open microphone.
Right.
So I'll just come up behind him and be like, blah, 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 and then just go on my evening. So
nice. Good. I'm glad to hear that's helping.
It brings many hours of laughter and just questionable looks. And I absolutely adore it. But
you know, I mean, it's funny that you say that too, because that's what it's for. It's for fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, it's genuinely for fun. I don't get folks who are like, oh, this is upsetting, especially when they're like, oh, Lovecraft and erotica. No, you can't do that. It's like, no, it's all present there.
Yeah.
I mean, here was a fellow who was, you know, charitably, you know, deeply ambivalent and weird about sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it shows in his fiction. You know, there's a fear of, you know, it's all there in the nameless rites and unnatural couplings and what have you. You know.
Oh yeah.
It's there to be poked at and had fun with. So yeah, Justine's stuff is definitely in that
wheelhouse.
yeah, roundhouse wheelhouse. It's definitely in that area.
Yeah.
Her Blackstone, her collected Blackstone work is being I was very happy
Yeah.
when this happened because it's going into German translation.
Oh my,
With,
Red Monolith Frenzy and Green
the
Fever
whole
Dream.
thing. Yeah,
Woo!
the whole thing, plus the two shorts, the two summoning shorts. We put out, Martian Migraine Press put out the, we put out, I just happen to have it here, right? We put out
cool.
we put out the soft cover, and I wanted it to be small. If you remember the old pornography used to be, right? Up there on the top shelf at the convenience store, the little small books with the cheap paper. This isn't cheap, but it has the look of it and the very small print. Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
We all remember them. So
They're
Priestess
about
came
the
out, and
same
that was
size as a TV guide.
pocket sized. So we did that, and I guess the Germans at Festa got wind of it, and they contacted me and said, "Can we translate that for you?" So they're going to do it in a hardcover.
Wow!
It's just the most. I believe it's going to be a limited run of 1,000. 1,000 limited hardcover run, and they're just hopefully they sell that out. I hope I have good feelings for them.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Now, if we might be interested in getting a copy, where would that be found?
The German translation? It's not out yet.
Yeah. Well, when is it expected to be out?
The latest thinking is that it's going to be again sometime in June, July. So it is coming.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll definitely be shouting it from the rooftops when that happens. Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 5 years with Martian
Migraine. 5 years with Martian Migraine. But
now,
actual writing, yes.
Actual writing, what would you say about that? Other than when you're like, hey, I think I want to do this. This sounds like fun.
What would I say about writing? It's not like it is in the movies. It certainly has shifted for me over the last little while.
In what way?
I think everybody starts off, feeling that it's going to be grow up, I think, with the myth of the writer and the ideas about writing that aren't really true, but they don't really map well onto the actual experience of it. There's a romance to it that you get disabused of pretty quick if you start to become serious. And I would say for the for the first 12 years or so, I wasn't serious. I wrote a novel, I wrote some short stories, I dabbled at it. I produced a spoken word late night radio show, from 97 to 2000, which took up a lot of my writing time. And, this was before a podcast, but it was essentially a podcast. Except I got to go in an actual studio.
Yes.
An actual radio station, which was, had its own weird aspects to it, as community radio will. But yeah, it's, in terms of like getting serious about it, it just becomes more about craft. Distancing yourself from the work to the point where you can view your output as. And I can always see in beginning writers, new at it. As far as I'm concerned, it's like this is the long writing is the long game, right? It's the long game. So you have to commit to the long game, and I'm committed now. And I just see in new writers who are like expecting it to just go off like that. And they all, I remember being sensitive about my writing, like, here it is for critique. Oh, but no, this is my baby. It's like, no, it's not your baby. It's a thing you made, just like anything else you would make. Craft. And any artifact can necessarily be. And once I internalized that and said, yes, there's a point where I'm going to, stop tinkering with it and it's done, right? You have to know when to finish a thing. may never be perfect, but you got to know when it's as good as it's going to get. Yeah, as soon as I did that, things started to take off more, you know. I started submitting more. I got more confidence in the work. And of course, our weird fiction community, you know, as you know, is very, very close and supportive.
Yes.
You know, there's always lots of, you know, folks who are very, very happy to do beta reads. And, you know, and also I think what's interesting about the weird fiction community is that there's this sort of, you know, we know quality. You know, the folks that I've worked with and that I've had the, you know, the good fortune to be, you know, published in their magazines and in their books.
Mm-hmm.
Early days, I was like, you know, are you buying? I would think, because I have imposter syndrome too. I would think, oh, they're buying it because we're friends. No, as it turns out, you know, it's very much they know when they read it, and you know that gets recognized. So yeah, very grateful and humble for all the, you know, changes that have come within the last, you know, 3 or 4 years as I've, you know, become you know, a more noticeable part of the community.
Tell me about this story bundle.
Oh well, yeah, that certainly relates.
Yeah.
Story Bundle is a company that basically puts out bundles of ebooks at super reasonable prices. So there's, you know, you basically get half of the bundle for one price, but if you go over a certain amount, right, then you'll get the bonus books as well, and they're curated. So Story Bundle, you know, basically approaches editors in their various fields. So they've had noir bundles, they've had children's book bundles, they've had adventure bundles, steampunk bundles, and they approached Nick Mamatas, you know,
Mm-hmm.
super tastemaker extreme, right, and said, would you curate a bundle for Lovecraftian?
Ooh.
Lovecraftian work, Lovecraftian literature. So you know, we're into literature now, and
Yeah.
Nick approached me. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Lovecraft's in the Library of America editions, so he's definitely in the literature realm now. So yeah, to be approached by Nick and have him ask, you know, if Martian Migraine had anything to add to the bundle, I was like, yeah, we got stuff to add to the bundle. So there's 4 books. There's my own When the Stars Are Right,
Mm-hmm.
which we talked about,
Yes.
Resonator, Cthulhu Saga, and I think one of the bonus books is Justine. So yeah, they're in there, and good stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
had remarkable sales in the first little bit. They're only on for a short period.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 22
Now,
days, I think.
oh, okay. So how long has this story bundle been going on?
Let's see. I guess it started at the beginning of the month. There's 16 days, 15 days left now.
Oh, okay.
So I think, was it the 4th? Anyways, it wasn't long ago. It's only been up for about a week, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel terrible. I didn't find out about that until today.
Oh.
and so it's like, okay, we've got to say something about this because I just learned about it. I just found out about it. Now, if anybody listening within the next week wants to get their hands on a copy of this ebook bundle, where would someone go?
They would go to, let me just pull it up here. Go to let's see here. They would go to storybundle.com, I believe. Let me just find it. They've been remarkable to work with. They've been very open and transparent. Everybody knows exactly what's going on. They're very supportive. They just tweet like crazy. It all makes a difference, right? It's all one of these. Yeah, you would go to storybundle.com, and it's the top one right now. So it's the only, they overlap their bundles. So one bundle's ending and another bundle begins, and the Lovecraft bundle ends in 15 days, 2 hours, 29 minutes.
No.
There's even a little countdown there. So yeah. And personally, there were a number of books that I knew of, hadn't had access to for one reason or another. So Cody Goodfellow's Radiant Dawn is currently just blowing my socks off. Just a wild man and just a genius writer as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And yeah, just amazing. And the way he captures, in particular, the whole military deal. Because when you think about the Cthulhu mythos, and you think about the sort of people who would encounter these beings and these extreme, outlying situations, who would be the first of all human groups to really get into that? And it would be our, our boys on the ground, boots on the ground, going to places that you probably shouldn't, getting sent places where you probably shouldn't go, if you want to stay alive and sane. And so, yeah, it has a real sort of verisimilitude to it because it's the military. Radiant Dawn, just, it's blowing my socks off. He's such a great writer.
Oh man, I'm going to interrupt for one more time. We just may have another word from our sponsors, and we love you. And that's fantastic. And thank you so much for letting me interrupt your wonderful speech here. Now, I would like to ask you one question.
Yeah, shoot.
Video games or tabletop? Which ones do you prefer?
Well, this is gonna come off as I'm gonna say video games. I'm gonna say video games. I haven't had a lot of experience with tabletop. I'm a new dad. I have been a dad for about 5 years. So there was a brief window, late 20s, early 30s, where I could have gotten into role playing and what have you. I think I LARPed a couple of times, if memory serves. But as far as just the ability to sit down and actually have a block of time to enjoy a game, then it's always going to be video games. My wife and I currently on a it's still basically in what's the difference between alpha and beta mode?
Oh gosh.
When they release a game. In any case,
it would be release candidate testing.
Yeah. Basically, it's out. It's from a group called Hinterland Studios, which actually operate out of a little logging town on the north end of Vancouver Island, where I live. And they are putting out. It's basically it's still in sandbox mode. Yeah. Long Dark. And it's extreme survival narrative. They don't have a story mode for it yet. It's just your plane goes down after a geomagnetic incident, which has affected the entire planet so far as you know. It's basically a post-apocalypse situation, but it's all set in the Pacific Northwest. Ridiculous blizzards, snow everywhere, rabid wolves, angry bears. But ability to sort of get into it and survival, the collection of small, just trying to stay warm, stay fed, don't get killed, right? Yeah. While at the same time, trying to improve your situation,
So kind of like a don't starve plus.
Yeah, I've heard comparisons.
Okay.
Yeah. We're really into the Long Dark.
Nice. The Long Dark. I'll have to check that out.
The Long Dark. It's gorgeous. The artists they have working on it, like we live up here, so when we see, the landscape, well, when we see all the little details that we recognize from a life on the coast, it's like, wow, that's spot on. These guys are really right. It's lovely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next question. Well, I'm going to go ahead and add my own little twist on this. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Dune, and why?
Oh, Dune.
Okay, I'm just gonna take away Dune. I put Dune in there for a couple of interviewees who were like, I don't like either one of those. All right, what about Dune? Who doesn't love Dune? But Star Wars or Star Trek? Let's scale it back just a little bit for this minute.
Okay, well, so Dune is basically the outlier. That's my safety. Dune is my safety.
Dune is your safety. But Star Wars or Star Trek, and why?
I am, I'm not super fond of either, which is a horrible thing to say, I know. But I grew up in a weird sort of fundamentalist cult. All the Star Wars films on bad videotape, out of order. In entertainment situations where I wasn't really focusing. So I don't have the same thing as my peers where it's this formative experience, right? It's always been, in somebody's grotty little den at a sleepover party or whatever. And I never really got it. So I appreciate it. And I'm happy when my friends have it and love it. It's like good to have something that you love. Star Trek, I guess. I mean, I love the socialism, right? It's not quite gritty enough for me. There's wall-to-wall carpeting on that ship. It's just,
yeah.
And the level of, and the threat levels are always so minimal. The actual episodes, right? Yeah. Because you've always got the safety net of the transporter. You've always got, you can be enjoying a drink in 10 forward, within 5 minutes of, confronting some awful thing on the surface. And, whenever it got into politics or sociology or anything which started to touch on, what it is to be human in a vastly, inimical universe, right? Mm-hmm. Then it was interesting. So yes, Star Trek over Star Wars for sure, because I think there's more to it. But I love the episode with Picard and the flute.
Yes,
where he lives that whole life.
Yep.
In something like 40 minutes, and then he wakes up, and what's in from the probe?
Little thing, but this little flute.
That's some, that was some good writing, just straight up. That was well done. Yeah, Star Trek.
If you could have one superpower, Scott, what would it be and why?
Oh gosh. I haven't thought about it in a while. Superpower. I'm gonna go with speed.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with speed. I've been watching The Flash, right?
Mm-hmm. You gotta go fast. You gotta go faster.
Faster, yeah. The more time to do
things. Fast enough.
Yeah, he's always doing that. He's always pushing for that. I've been basically, getting my kid into DC and into Superman, because I think Superman's a fantastic. When you're just starting out, I mean, he's ideal. Mm-hmm. But the more I look at, and the more I watch what they're doing with it on the show, and how they're approaching it in other media, I'm like, there's so much going on.
Yes.
There's so much that you can apply it to. It just seems like a real sort of all-purpose, some really fantastic experiences,
Absolutely.
There's very little limit to what you can do when you're just really fast.
That's true. Marvel or DC?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go with DC.
Okay.
Yeah, just because of the. Although when I, in my teen years, I was definitely Marvel. I collected Alpha Flight. Mm-hmm. Canadian Marvel. I couldn't resist. They had a Sasquatch on the team. Come on.
Oh man, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. That's very cool.
It was. Yep.
I was always very fond of Swamp Thing. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
sci-fi
Also
or
good.
fantasy? Sci-fi or fantasy, Scott?
Definitely science fiction.
Yeah.
I don't so much like the hard science fiction
Mhm.
very much, although I love Ian Banks's novels. I love the culture novels. Got to map it back onto Dune. If it talks in an interesting way about, and more interestingly to me, you know, what we are becoming.
Mhm.
You know, this is why I think science fiction and weird fiction, you know, all these genres that basically, you know, push at the future and try to make it give up its secrets and it's of what we're becoming. I think that's vital. You know, it's entertaining, but it's also vital, like for society
Yeah, gotta
to,
have
you
room
know,
to always
to
grow.
yeah, knock on those doors and see what opens them. So yeah, for sure.
Very true. Man, um, Scott, I just wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time to speak with
Leah,
me
thank
this
you.
evening. You're very
Absolutely. No, it
welcome.
was great fun.
Yeah,
Great fun. Great
yeah,
fun. Let's do it again.
absolutely. You're welcome anytime, anytime. But yeah, I am gonna go ahead and sign off for tonight, if that's all right.
All right.
Okay,
Great to see you.
absolutely.